Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Holl. And as it continues to do important work, reach milestones, and look towards the future, the National Black Brewers Association has put out a report detailing its accomplishments. Kevin Asato, the executive director, is here for a conversation. But first, please go visit allaboutbeer.com. There, you can find original articles, reviews, news, insights, and other podcasts. Listen to shows like Brewer to Brewer and the All About Beer podcast simply by searching All About Beer wherever you listen to shows. You can also follow All About Beer on Instagram, Threads, X, and Facebook at All About Beer. And to keep up with all of the smoked beer news and releases, make sure you check out This Week in Rauch Beer by searching the group on Facebook or follow at TW Rauch Beer on X, Threads, and Instagram. Glassware and apparel is available on allaboutbeer.com/merch. This show and all of the work we do, it's supported by you. Please go visit patreon.com/allaboutbeer. A few dollars goes a long way to help fund writers, photographers, creators, and editors. And if you'd like to learn more about advertising and supporting All About Beer, please email us at info@allaboutbeer.com. A few weeks back, the National Black Brewers Association released an update on the state of the organization and all of the work it's accomplished since its founding. To get into it all, and all that's to come, I'm pleased to be joined this week by Kevin Asato, the group's executive director. According to his bio, Asato is a 30-year beverage industry expert with diverse experience in adult beverage, non-alcoholic beverages, and carbonated soft drinks. His tenure with Anheuser-Busch, Miller Brewing, PepsiCo, Dr. Pepper, Snapple, Bacardi USA, Republic, and National Distributing has enabled him to develop and execute sales, marketing, and distribution plans across multiple channels in both state and national capacities. Participating as the executive director for the NB2A is directly aligned with his core values and taps into all of his experience and skills, he says. As the first executive director, he is tasked with building the foundation that will fuel the growth of Black-owned breweries and membership into the organization while celebrating the history and accomplishments of the Black Brewers of America. He joined me via Zoom. Here's our conversation. Kevin, thanks for being on the show this week. I appreciate it. And just before we went on air, we were talking that we hadn't had the occasion to talk before. So I'm glad we're doing this now, and I'm glad to be able to be talking about what the NB2A is doing. For those unfamiliar with the organization, and I know it's been around for a while now, and I've been following it, obviously, but just haven't had you on the podcast. What is the NB2A, and I guess the lead up to its creation, why its creation was important and what it is today? Sure. Can you walk us through that? Yeah.
I love the fact that you think that we've been around for a while. To me, that tells me, wow, maybe we're making some noise. Maybe we're getting out there a fair amount where we seem bigger than what we are.
Well, in the grand scheme of American craft beer, to have an organization that's been around for a couple of years, like that's a big thing.
And here's the crazy thing, John. We actually incorporated December of 2022, right? So while the paperwork was in order, we actually didn't even come together till last year. Had our first board meeting in February 23, and actually our first in-person meeting at the CBC, right? If we were going to come out big and bring all the notable players in the Black brewing community and bring this organization to light, our first kind of like coming out party, for lack of a better word, was May of 2023. So we're just a tick over a year. Yeah, to really kind of hitting on and exploding on the beer scene. Now, granted, there was some behind the scenes work in terms of partnering with the, Brewers Association to garner some of the resources and to help us navigate some things there. But to answer your question about why this organization even existed, it's rooted in the simple foundation that, 1% of all breweries owned in the United States, or less than 1%, are Black owned. More importantly, there just weren't any resources to help that collective group. Not to say that the Brewers Association or State Guild wasn't there, but we've definitely identified some unique challenges onto the Black community that are unique onto that community. And so it was interesting that Kevin Johnson, former NBA MVP, former city of mayor of Sacramento, in his effort to redevelop the area that he grew up in, his hometown, there was a brewery. And in that redevelopment effort, he took ownership of Oak Park Brewery, and he's like, look, this brewery is a fabric of this community that grew up, but I don't know anything about it. So what's the organization that can help me get there? So he started reaching out to perhaps some other breweries. And he's like, wow, well, there is no national organization. There's no group that you can naturally tap into that's unique onto our community. And Kevin is very big about, Black excellence and supporting, the Black community. And so when he realized this, and he was drawing on his public service, background about being, a civil servant, being the mayor of Sacramento, and then having started the African American Mayors Association, so another trade association, he's like, well, this seems like the Black beer industry actually needs perhaps a trade association to help with these very pieces. And so it was from that experience that he said, and he collectively got the feedback from some of the other Black brewers that they said, wow, yeah, you're having some of the same challenges he's personally experiencing. And so, yeah, the primary purpose is simply to, one, promote the Black brewing community, through this organization. That's a key factor there. Secondly, you're looking to increase the number of African Americans in the brewing industry, particularly at the ownership and at the brewmaster level, right? So that's the key factor, increasing those of the most significant levels of influence there. And the third piece is exercising some political influence, and advocating for some, effective policy. We understand we're not a massive lobbying group. We get it. The BA, the NBWA, they have the real money, the Beer Institute, but there is legislation that we can chime into and gain the advocacy of our legislators. We most certainly will bring them along to support our Black brewers' efforts there. And then finally, this organization is going to be, really focused on fostering an understanding and the history and legacy of African Americans in brewing. So those are the four key passions there, but rooted all in how do we help those that are having some unique challenges, right? So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a quick summary of why and who we are.
Yeah. So as you all incorporated, as there's been meetings, as there have been, gatherings and conversations, right? And by and large, American craft beer is going through really tough challenges and really tough times right now, and competition
Sure.
from
Yeah.
everywhere, and lack of enthusiasm among consumers, and just, economic headwinds, and sort of everything else. But with some of the challenges that were first cited before the creation of the association, and then sort of putting that all together as things were incorporated, now that you all have had a chance to sort of get together, have there been new challenges brought to the forefront, or new conversations about initiatives that need to be addressed in addition to some of those earlier ones? And
So,
if so, what? Yeah.
yeah, no, great question, Aaron. You know, the problems or the challenges that you guys motivated or served as a catalyst to have this organization created are still there, right? There's still a lot of work to overcome those obstacles, those challenges. So definitely those challenges are not taking a backseat to anything new or different, but there have been some additional learnings. Those additional learnings, I'll definitely spend some time when I can walk you through, the whole purpose of our State of the Black Brewers report, and that actually serves as the genesis or its own catalyst as to why this report came out. And I'll give you more details about that in a bit. But
Yeah.
yeah, when I looked at the reason for this organization, there's unfortunately still a level of systemic challenges unique onto the Black brewer, right? So access to capital is one of the key challenges. And let's face it, the brewing industry is not a cheap business opportunity, right? I mean, it's capital intensive. It requires commercial real estate. I mean, so it's a big deal to, a big commitment to get involved with. And, there's also just the very real reality of just, whether it be industry connections or, market access, love the fact that the larger players have great industry connection activity, but by design, part of being a superpower is having superpower. So in that superpower, you kind of block out new entrants into the market, right? And that is the nature of many Black-owned breweries. They're just small. They're not a superpower, and they're not affiliated with the macro beers or even the larger craft beer partners. And so, when they're trying to gain entry to the same shelf space as, that lives in a Total Wine or any grocery store or any liquor store or any bar, they're up against, the Anheuser-Busch's of the world, the Boston Beers of the world. So, that's not a it's not necessarily a problem, it's just the reality of things that, hey, look, they're going into a gunfight with a knife, right? So we need to arm some of our players with perhaps a greater leverage point. And these are just real challenges. And once again, these are not necessarily unique onto the black brewers, right? Several small and entry brewers have these same challenges.
Yeah.
So, whether it be industry connection, market access, but there's also the visibility and representation that, stems from that there. And then the very real thing, John, if you think about how craft beer really took off, there was a beer pub or a tap room in some really obscure portions of town, right? It wasn't in perhaps in the heart of New York City or heart of Los Angeles, but it was maybe perhaps a little bit more rural in nature, definitely community based. And as these brew pubs opened up, it really turned out to be a community meeting place, right? So now
Hmm.
you had your local community, whether it be your mailman, your neighbor, everybody that was in that community living and breathing, yeah, let's come together at the brew pub. There, they didn't realize it, but that community got an education in beer. They're like, oh yeah, I'll support the local business. It's local. It's got our name in it, maybe, or something that they can absolutely resonate with. So that local community ended up supporting that craft beer brand, and all of a sudden that business was vibrant. It was viable. It was a community meeting space. Alcohol being consumed responsibly, and an education of beer. Now, the sad thing is that those communities did not, they were predominantly Caucasian, right? And
Sure.
it's not sad that they're Caucasian. It was just, I'm pointing out the fact that it was sad and the fact that a lot of these great community gathering opportunities in terms of having a beer pub open up didn't open up in Black communities or communities of strong diversity. So it's a missed opportunity to educate the Black community and Black people about beer and specifically craft beer, that it's a beautiful, complex, robust flavor profile of products, that, my goodness. And it's crazy when I started doing some work with Chris Shepard of the Beer Marketers Insights or
Great
Institute.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, really, really, really good partner in this, effort there. He started digging up some information and he's like, wow, this is how beer is marketed to various demographics. And it was so alarming that the African American community just had a small knowledge base of craft beer. And when you understand why, you're like, why? How is it that so many other races had greater exposure to it? And then you ladder back to, where did these beer pubs open up? Where did these tap rooms open up? And they were in communities of, perhaps a little bit more Caucasian based, a little lacking in diversity, but they rallied behind it. So that community really became informed. So that's where that absence comes. When we only have 86 black breweries in the United States, that gets spread real thin across 50 states, right?
Yeah.
You know, and also, that ability to educate a new drinker, and I think that's the key point that I'm pointing out. There's a lack of black beer drinkers, and I think that's the real opportunity highlighted in terms of the work that we've been doing. So, as I mentioned before, the problems that motivated the creation of the NB2A are still there, but the learning or the new opportunity that we've uncovered is that there's just a genuine absence or a lack of black beer drinkers. So
Yeah.
that bit of effort is where we're putting some energy about how do we engage? And I think it ladders right directly into what we're doing with the National Black Brewers Association in terms of increasing Black brewery ownership and getting that Black owned brew pub so we can really embrace the Black community and invite the Black community, a new drinker that, quite frankly, will benefit not just the craft industry, but the beer industry as a whole.
Yeah.
So,
Can I go back to the visibility and representation part
sure.
that you were talking about before? Because having covered beer for a while, and again, I'll preface this by saying, as a middle-aged white guy who covers the craft beer industry, a
Yeah.
lot of the conversations that I would have with Black brewers, Black owners, didn't center around race. It didn't center
Mhm.
around who they were as a person. They were just, I'm a brewer who makes this, this beer,
Yeah.
or, I own this brewery or whatever. And there was, I don't know if reluctance is the right word, but there was a I just want to talk about beer. I just want to talk about brewing. I don't necessarily want to talk about my identity. And I mean, that was their choice. That was, fine for them. But there's
Sure.
definitely this newer generation of brewers who have come up who have said, yeah, we want to talk about this. We want to put that out there. So I think from my, media perch here, it was sort of in the same vein of, you know, talking about women brewers, where,
Mm, hmm
you'd get a lot of, you'd see national articles of, who are the women brewers these days? And it's like, no, they're just
hmm
brewers. Like we don't like, why are we assigning gender, to this? So I'm just wondering about like the visibility and representation of how membership has changed or how some of these new brewery owners, are addressing, themselves as more than just brewers.
mm. And here's the thing: they've always been more than just brewers, right? I think the key piece that I always talk about. I've not connected with every member of our organization there, but there's a definite common thread. They're brewers, not any other distinct. They're brewers, no different than, Jim Cook is a brewer at Sam Adams. They're brewers, so their ability to say, "Hey, look, I'm a brewer." Yeah, I understand that. They didn't
Yeah.
want to lead with necessarily being race driven there or anything like that because you're right. They're still brewers at the end of the day. I'll even go back one forward. They're family people first, right? They're part of a family, but they don't say, "Hey, I'm a husband.
Right.
I'm a dad." That's just an inherent knowledge. Got it. That they kind of accept. I think the dialogue that's taking place now that's, people are pointing out these subtle differences is because, look, before it may have been that really uncomfortable dialogue to add that fact that I'm a brewer and I'm a black brewer at best. I don't want to lead with that. That's what I love about this community. They just want to be known that we make quality beer. That's it. We make good quality beer. We have a great experience. I don't want to be top of mind because I'm black. I want to be top of mind because of the quality of the beer I produce and the experience that I give you if you come to my brew pub. So knowing that they lead with that, that's great. We're just at a day and age now where it is now okay to have those further modifiers or descriptors associated with your brand, your product, your identity. That dialogue about inequality and unfortunately, the severity of the activities that happened, in 2020 that were, really kind of elevated and highlighted in the media with, the
The
George
murder
Floyd
of George
murders.
Floyd. Yeah.
Yeah, that there's such a massive change in how things were marketed, and more importantly, how the conversations changed, that it was now okay to talk about uncomfortable differences in racial presence. And you can have these conversations now, albeit uncomfortable, you could have them now. And that it was okay to say, yes, I'm a black brewer. Yes, I'm a black this, that, and the other, or any other identifier or descriptor. It was now a bit more comfortable, or there was just a confidence level to say that there wouldn't be as much backlash. But I think the other key takeaway is that there was a genuine interest in a larger population to understand who is it. I'm like, yeah, I get it. And, you may not be a person of color, but you may have a genuine desire to see a greater level of, diversity in whatever space you live in or whatever, space you work in. And because there's definitely an outcry of those that are saying, yes, I want more diversity. I want more visibility into who is doing, beer in this space. That was the other catalyst that made it okay, right? There was definitely an audience that was saying, I want to know. And so it's unfortunate that we had to have something so severe as, unfortunate murders, but
Yeah.
the climate changed. The readiness made it acceptable to have that conversation.
And I remember talking with Marcus Baskerville at the time
Mm-hmm.
when he released Black is Beautiful, and it was heartening in dark times to see beer as a conversation starter or beer as a place where everybody could get together and had one common thing, that they were all sharing, and then
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation based on that. I know Black's Beautiful is part of the organization now. And
Yes.
there's been some evolutions of that as well with the volume two uh
Mm-hmm.
that came out. Can you sort of talk about how or where that program stands? And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, so to your point, you obviously have a relation with Marcus there, who's the founder and creator of it, and what a remarkable job that, and that initial volume, if you will, and then that initial program outreach. 1,601 breweries brewed this product or this collaboration brew across the world, right, and generated about $4.5 million, globally, and the resources, the monies generated, were going to a an organization of social injustice, of your choice. And so that is phenomenal work. And Marcus has always set out to say, hey, look, I want this to eventually, be representative of the community I work in, the community that I love and adore. And so volume 2 is the natural evolution of the Black is Beautiful program, where the proceeds will go to the NB2A, as opposed to a social and a scattered group of partners, of social injustice and reform. So it's not
yeah,
to say that those efforts weren't recognized, but now it's just coming back to what Marcus has always wanted to do, and that's like, hey, look, so let's look at bringing a little bit more diversity and helping the close that gap, that racial inequity that exists in the beer industry. I can help do that right here in my own backyard, and now there's an organization that can help facilitate that. When this first came out, this organization didn't exist. So Black is Beautiful just took that natural evolution. And so he was really grateful to ultimately, you know, direct that, those proceeds to the MB2A. And now the MB2A actually owns the Black is Beautiful trademark and partnership there. So this is now an MB2A brand and initiative, still with Marcus at the helm leading it, especially as our president of
yeah.
the organization.
So
So
and the
yeah.
second volume is a hazy IPA.
Yes. And so, looking to do things a little bit different there. I mean, Marcus, loves doing stouts, right? That man is a stout king for certain there. So no, not a real surprise that Black is Beautiful was a stout for volume 1. Volume 2 was perhaps a little bit more of a call to action on how do we engage more consumers, right? How do we make this more consumer friendly? And not a real surprise, the hazy IPAs, is one of the more popular beer styles out there. So that's a little bit of that response there, getting seeking more engagement from a consumer standpoint and whatnot. So yeah, that hazy IPA still allows you, while they give you the basic recipe, it still allows you to kind of put your own spin on things, and that's what I've been really fortunate to see. Any of the brewers that have produced it, and I had an opportunity to try. I kind of look at it as, someone can give you a recipe for chocolate cake, but you put your own spin, your own little nuances to make it uniquely yours. And so you may have 100 chocolate cakes in front of you, but they can all be very different, right? So that's what, I love about the program that Mark has built here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to go back then to marketing, right, of the impact that marketing can have on craft beer to Black people. I'm looking at one of the slides that you have in this annual report that was put out. So has the Black is Beautiful Beer Initiative, has that been able to help bring more Black beer drinkers into the fold?
I can say that it most certainly could. And I respond with that very specific response, because the intent of Black is Beautiful is to get more brewers to participate in the collaboration, right? To actually get, that was very brewer focused. And the Black is Beautiful Hazy IPA Volume 2 initiative was to get drinkers into understanding and asking questions about this issue. But that was all drinkers, not necessarily Black drinkers, right?
Okay.
We were laddering into the trend that the beer industry was seeing. In terms of getting more Black beer drinkers, the biggest opportunity there has to be an exposure, dare I say an education of craft beer to the Black community. When I love the fact that everybody and all the major companies have done all their research on how do you connect with the African American community, and they're looking at it from a flavor profile and recognizing there are definitely some broad scope directional pieces that can be shared that the Black consumer has a specific or a a bolder flavor profile, likes a little bit sweeter but bigger flavors. There are some definite things you can kind of direct your efforts towards, right, to hit the masses. But there's been a real miss in terms of authentically connecting with Black people. Sure, you can produce a product, but consumers of today don't just consume a product. They need to understand, maybe it's the company's ethos, maybe it's the brand guidance, maybe, they need to feel like they're connected to a brand beyond just what they're putting into their mouth. And with that, that's that authenticity that comes. So not only does there need to be an education, there needs to be that authentic connection to a brand. And beer pubs and brew pubs can do exactly that, right? When you're in a Black owned brewery or any owned brew pub, that brew pub controls what you taste, right? In
Mm-hmm.
terms of what you can drink, what you eat. They control what you hear, right? So the music and and whatnot. What you see, right? What's the art on the wall and the smiles on people's faces, and then perhaps even the human interaction. Is that staff engaging? Do they enjoy, so that human interaction becomes all things that brew pub can control. Now, that's where I'm saying that this is the opportunity to engage Black people. This is where you can learn about beer. If you find that, wow, the experience that I had in this brew pub is music that I identify with, and there's groups of people that look like me, and wow, I can actually try this product and it tastes great. This is phenomenal. I had a good experience. Experience can be built upon, and that good experience will be socialized to their friend network, and that good experience continues to build upon itself and attract more people of color into this space. And so that's where the energy needs to be put towards attracting, new drinkers, right? Trying and exploring products in a safe, comfortable space. It's not to say the brew pubs that exist today are not safe and comfortable, but at first glance, if 99% of people that don't look like you may be a bit apprehensive by going in and even giving it a try.
Yeah.
Unfair as that may be, or but it is very real, right? And so, you know, anytime we can help break down those barriers, and there are some breweries that are doing it really well. Oh my goodness! So I
If
don't want
is
to
there
make
is
this
there
a black or white thing. It's most certainly not.
is there a good
Yeah, go
example?
ahead.
Is there a good example of somebody who's doing it really, really well? Because I think that this industry um, often follows leaders. Will follow people who have set tones, who have set, flavor agendas, whatever, and they look to the people who are doing it right in order to better themselves, and then better the overall beer drinking industry, community, etc. Um, what's an example of somebody who is doing it right in the way that you were just kind of explaining that we could possibly look to for guidance, inspiration, whatever the word is?
God, I am certain that that list can be a lot longer than what I'll tee up, but let me tee up one that actually probably has enough notoriety and visibility that can say, wow, that enough people would recognize it and can easily find more information about, right? If I said it was Kevin Asato's pub, a lot of people would be like, ooh, I don't know about it. Totally fair. But if I say a name like Allagash and can say, wow, I can research Allagash and do some work. Yeah, you can. Most certainly you can. And I'll do it right from Rob Todd's communication, actually, the owner of Allagash there, or founder.
Yeah.
He was speaking at the California Craft Brewers Summit, and he talked about how diversity and supporting the community that you're in has been one of his mantras, right? It's just one of the driving programs and efforts that his brewery is going to be all about, and they are seeing tremendous success. And it may not be exclusively attributed to that. So I want to acknowledge that the quality of beer and all these other elements that they're doing, I do not want to minimize all their efforts there, but Rob's message was very clear that, and he gave a beautiful example about how a group of women were walking outside of his one of the brew pubs there, and they would he saw the same person look in periodically but wouldn't step in. He made a couple changes to make it a lot more inviting for that audience of people that would walk by, peek their head in because maybe they were beer enthusiasts but didn't feel comfortable to walk in. He removed whatever that obstacle was. And now that audience of people are now, that were once walking by are now patrons. And it's because it was, his ethos of saying, hey, look, I want to be more representative of the community that I'm serviced in or living in. And I want to let everybody know that everybody's welcome. So it was intentional to be diverse and recognizing, and taking action when he sees that there may be an obstacle, taking that action there. And I don't think anybody can really dispute that Allagash, they're doing well, right? I mean, they're doing well from a business perspective, perhaps, doing outpacing the trends of the industry. And, they're just a genuine good group of people. And, maybe not everybody likes a Belgian white, but suffice it to say, their business is doing well. And I think they've really tapped into much of what we're saying here. Diversity is an asset, is an absolute resource to help your business as a whole. So that's one example that comes to mind.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Um,
Mhm.
so going back to Nashville 2023, getting together, and now you have some more time under your collective belts, and things have, you've had some more meetings, you've had some membership growth, you've really sort of started to dial stuff in. Um, what do you see as the work that's been done in the last 18 months or so? What can you look to and say, yes, we've done this, and this
Mhm.
is a good foundation that we can build upon going forward? But you've had some good time to get some good initial work done, and I'm curious as to what some of those early building blocks are.
I appreciate that. When we opened up this dialogue, John, we talked about, hey, what was the very purpose of the NB2A, right? And I'll go back to those as my guideline, right? Because every day I have to use, it's easy to go down a rabbit hole, so many different things there. But I use those four principles as kind of my North Star to make sure that the work that we're doing matters most, right? Because our board really spent time to make sure that what we're doing matters most. I kind of like to say we can do anything, we just can't do everything. So the things that we're doing, did we successfully get increased number of Black brewery ownership? I'd say in the 18 months that we've been in existence, yes, I can honestly say that, with the help of Adam over at Triumph Brewing, who donated a brew house, that allowed Celeste Beatty, one of the icons in the women in craft beer, not just Black women in craft beer, to finally open up her own brewery. And without that donation, and us being able to facilitate that connection and ultimately facilitate some of the funding to going in to get that up and running, we would not have been able to say that, wow, we inched the needle up in terms of increasing the number of Black brewer ownership. So Harlem Brewing South, I mean, even though Celeste owns Harlem Brew in Harlem Brewing in New York, they don't have their own brick and mortar location. So now she's
Yeah.
opening up her location in North Carolina. So could not be more pleased with that bit of work that, Adam over at Triumph Brewing and the National Black Brewers Association and Celeste to bring that to life. From that, we've actually had connection with Vinny and Natalie Slurzo, Russian River Brewing, in which they donated the very brew house that is the creator of Pliny the Elder and Pliny the Younger and all these award-winning beers. They're donating that to one of our Black brewery owners there. So we're having not a grant program, to an application process to issue that. And that will help a Black owner ultimately get across the line of opening up their own brewery. Optimism Brewing, another great partner who's donating a canning line to help one of our brewers move to the next stage of, now that they have their production, now they're looking at expanding distribution. So being able to garner those resources and find those partners in the beer industry to literally donate hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment is one of the things that I can say, wow, this has been a great, great bit of work for the team there. And historically, someone may have been a well wisher, but they may not have known how to get that product to someone. All right,
Sure.
how do I facilitate getting these resources to someone? And so I'm glad to say that we've created that pathway for other services to come to life. Look, we're also increasing visibility, through our outreach programs and through our visibility. We have over 400 million impressions, but we currently are sitting at just under 300 members into to the association. But I also want to just point out the fact that from the work that we're doing, and awareness efforts there, we're garnering more people coming out and saying, wow, I heard about your story and I want to help. So this is why I love that the fact that the Molson Brewings and Molson Coors and the Boston Beers and Diageo's, the notable giants in beer are coming out to support what we're doing. But I also love the fact that companies like US Bank, an actual bank is coming out saying, yes, I'm supportive of Black ownership, Black entrepreneurship. So they're coming out and supporting there. We have several other partners that are starting to come out because of that. Crow Beacon, which is an accounting firm and
Hmm.
helping us with the financials, they're doing work and saying, yes, we are supportive not only of Black entrepreneurship, but this is how we can help and lend our services there. Bevport as a distributor, the National Beer Wholesalers Association, they're saying, yes, I see what you guys are doing. Our distributors are seeking some of these brands. And so there's a way for us to support what you're doing and helping our membership, our constituency as well. So what we've done in terms of visibility, we're able to get that activity out to a larger audience, right? And that's where I continue to see this, that this isn't a black or white thing. This is a good business thing. This isn't a beer or non-beer thing. This is just a good business thing. And so, I don't want to ever lose sight of the fact that there are resources that live outside of the beer industry that can help. And those helping resources, whether it be legal resources from Ballard Spar or even, Nutter, who's a partner, a partner with us. I love the fact that these resources are now starting to bubble up. And that's what this association can effectively do: collect those resources, refine it, tailor it to the people that need it most. The other bit of great news that I can say that kind of ladders back to our principles is about how we're having positive legislative impact. Well, National Black Brewers Day is such a big initiative for us because this touches on one of our key points. How do we celebrate the history and legacy of African Americans in beer? And October 10th is identified as National Black Brewers Day because it's also the day that Theodore Mack opened up the very first African American owned brewery in 1970 in
Yeah.
Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And we want to make sure that we celebrate and recognize his efforts to kind of really forge in a pathway. Granted, it had a short live of about short life in about 2 years, but it was that effort, that energy to kind of blaze that trail to first that we don't want to have lost. And so we have got 17 jurisdictions like the state of California, cities of Denver, Atlanta, and some other major notable, cities and states to recognize October 10th as National Black Brewers Day. From that work, we got the support of the Congressional Black Caucus to actually put the initiative forth to the House, the actual Congress, put the House to make it a federally recognized day. So to truly be a national recognized Black Brewers Day. So this ends up, giving us that connectivity. And I will tell you, John, the beautiful thing about this is a good thing, right? When we can get local and national legislators to be aware of this, and Black Brewers initiates the dialogue that helps us actually have perhaps a more meaningful dialogue. So much so now we talk about perhaps economic wealth empowerment initiatives, unlocking some public funds to see some of these businesses get off the ground, or perhaps even identifying space. And so that work also connects us to a group of legislators that can help a larger audience. As a matter of fact, Stephen Horsford, representative out of Nevada, is the
Hmm.
co-author of the Cheers Act. That Cheers Act is to ensure that there's a greater level of draft being used, and there's a lot of benefits that helps the beer industry as a whole. It's supported by the Brewers Association. It's supported by several other organizations and seen as an overall good thing. Well, Representative Horsford is also an advocate and also the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. So as a small organization that we are, we can collectively say, great, we will bring the rest of the beer industry into the fold and supporting the Cheers Act, right? Which is a great initiative, not just for the beer industry, but also for, Representative Horsford, who's really saw the need. So we like the fact that we can be tiny but mighty, right? While we may not have significant, PAC dollars or anything of that nature, we do have a network and a connectivity that can help advance perhaps agendas that can help the larger beer industry. And so, we're supportive of not just our Black brewers, but the industry that we work in as well. So any way we can help us in that capacity. So I don't want to go on too long because I think the list can really be really
No, I
good
was gonna,
as
yeah,
talking about of all the things we've gotten done in the past year. But yeah, it's I kind of chuckle when I first connected with Kevin Johnson when I was being interviewed for this role. He's like, Kevin, we're gonna do Kevin A, excuse me, we're
yep,
gonna do 3 years worth of work in 1 year. I'm like, stop it. That's what everybody says. He was not lying. That is
yeah.
the culture and the pace that he set forth, and I'm glad to say that I'm glad to say that he instilled it, and this organization is living up to it. So I could not be more proud of the board that's in place to help make that vision come true and to maintain that pace of effectiveness and efficiency.
I like that. I will also remind folks who are listening to, if you didn't, when we first had him on the show, go back and buy Clint Liner's book on Ted Mack,
Yes.
and learn about people's beer. It's a wonderfully researched and written book, and especially now with the day coming up, go get it on your
Yeah.
shelves, make it a beach read. As I'm starting to get mindful of your time and the clock and everything, but 3 years worth of work in 1 year. So, what are you doing year two?
We're definitely building upon all the great work that's taken place so far, right? I mean, as I mentioned, we have roughly 300 members. I think one of the key things I'm also realizing is that everybody used to think that this is just for Black beer owners, that you to be a member, you have to be Black. And that's not the case. All the benefits and what we're trying to accomplish is to help Black beer ownership. To be a member, anybody can join. And I point that out in particular because we have such great partners. Could be Smog City, could be Haas Hops Group, or any of the number of non-Black owned businesses that are members because they're supportive of a diverse beer community. They're supportive of the efforts that what we're doing, and they too wanted to understand. They're like, all right, how do I not only just support, but I understand the value of what's taking place there. So being connected and what you guys are doing, I can pull some of that and apply it to my own brewery and apply it to my own business. There are some definite things that are good and unique onto what we can bring. So I love the fact, and I just want to continue to reiterate that it's so easy to become a member. You just visit NB2A. It is the acronym for the National Black Brewers Association. So visit nb2a.org and literally look at the join now and click along and you'll see your level of engagement, which is very reasonable. And there's still a host of benefits that as a member you can get. Even if you're not Black owned, there are definitely some benefits that are beneficial to all. As we increase membership, another key component that we want is still, once again, we're still very much in need to do the work that we're doing to have these larger sponsors and continue to have resources being identified that need to make it out to the Black brewing community. There's never going to be a shortage of resources needed, right? I think we can all appreciate, whether it's equipment, whether it's financial resources, whether it's time, or we've had people donate labels, and these efforts to help drive visibility, or Matt Stout, or excuse me, the Stout Collective and Matt Tanaka doing marketing work and services for what we do. These resources can all be put to very good use and have a very willing home. So year two is a big component about us driving more resources, more visibility, and scaling the very work that we're doing. And so we're still going to be guided by our four principles, increasing that brewery ownership component there. But if we stay the course, this will start to morph into some very, very significant components there.
I like that.
So, mhm.
Right. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you the green door question, which we've been doing for a while. And the premise is on the television show The Good
Okay.
Place. They introduce a
Okay.
concept of a green door in the final season. And that means the characters can walk through this green door and be any place they want, doing whatever they want to be doing. So if we had a green door
Mm,
on our plane of existence and this conversation ended, and you could walk through it and be at any pub or any brewery anywhere in the world, where would you want to
mm.
go? Who would you want to be with? And what would you like to be drinking?
John. Ooh, putting me on the spot, but I will tell you, I love the beach community. I like the vibe that is surrounded by having the ocean air, the smell, and the lifestyle associated with that. So it would definitely have to be in a tropical setting. I don't know where. There's so many beautiful beaches on this planet. I could not identify a single one that is better than the other. But walking in, I would have my host of pub ales. It's my like on a nitro stout, on a nitro stout pour. Think of Boddingtons, if you will, right? But there was a phenomenal product that was produced by Crooked Lane, and that was a pub ale. So Teresa, thank you so much over there. I could have that beer on tap. And who would I like to have around me? Whew, oof. I definitely believe it'd be a host of my best friends. And I got to be honest with you, John, I don't know if I could be put on the spot to give you a definitive answer.
Wow. All right. Well,
Wow.
I'll give you a
Wow.
pass because you're busy doing all of the other work out there. But take this into consideration because take a vacation, go find that beach, go find that beer, go find your friends, and um, it's
I
good.
love that.
Yeah.
I love
Kevin,
that.
thanks for taking the time. Thanks for being on the show this week. Thanks for everything that you're doing, that the organization is doing, and for keeping us all updated as to the good work being done.
Oh, I appreciate it, John. Thank you for having us and thank you for hearing our message.
You can read the full report by going to nb2a.org, and I hope you do. Next week, join me as we get a history lesson and talk about a new brewing venture in Portland, Maine. Questions, comments, guest suggestions, you can do all of that by emailing me. It's John Holl, that's JOHNHOLL at allaboutbeer.com. A reminder, please go visit allaboutbeer.com. There you can check out the podcast page, the merch page, and read great new content, as well as the archives going back to 1979. You can also follow All About Beer on social media at All About Beer. And if you're interested in supporting journalism in the beer space, email us at info@allaboutbeer.com or go to patreon.com/allaboutbeer. Don't forget, All About Beer has a podcast channel. Search and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Steal This Beer has new episodes every Monday, and the BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. And don't forget to check out probrewer.com each week for original articles from the All About Beer team. As for this show, Nate Weber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed our logo, and I'm John Holl. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'll be back again to drink beer and to think beer. Questions, comments, guest suggestions,